to the Remote No Pressure Podcast, Bill and Friends.
Hey, that's better than last week where it was just everyone. Now it's only your friends. So if you're listening and you're not a friend, well, we'll still include you.
If you're listening and you're not a friend, I would be friendly to you if I saw you, especially if you went down below and clicked subscribe on our YouTube channel.
Hey, now we're friends.
Now we're friends.
Now we can be friends.
Ding, ding. I'm going to tell you this story. Speaking of friends, I knew someone who gave me a guitar once, a family member, and I'm not going to say her name, but she
Mom.
No, I'm sorry. She gave me a guitar, and I was like, wow, it's like a Fender acoustic. It's like a $600 or $700 guitar. You know, it's not like a mint thing, but it really meant a lot to me because it was from a family member.
Yeah.
And so one day she says, hey, this is like 20 years later. I want my guitar back. And I said, but wait, it's my guitar. And she's like, well, I want it back. And I said, what you gave it to me is kind of special to me. She goes, don't be an Indian giver.
Whoa.
And I'm like, that's the exact opposite of an Indian giver. An Indian giver gives you something and then takes it away.
So she was being the Indian giver.
She was the Indian giver.
Is that even PC?
No, it's not. We should probably edit that out. I tell you what, can you beep out the word Indian?
It's too late. It's gone now.
It's too late. On the YouTube channel. Well,
now we're saying this about the other person, so it's not us saying it.
Look, it's
totally fine.
I'm quoting the other person. It's 2016.
How dare?
It's 2015, 2016. Okay.
Back when you could get away with this kind of stuff.
Back to when you can get away with the slurs.
I miss some of the slurs.
You know, it's really funny that I'm not going to go into this too much, but there are some people that I know that are racist, that are truly racist. I'm from Texas, and I've got a family in some weird parts of Texas that are still racist, and it's hard for me to believe that people still exist like that.
I know.
It's just very, very
I grew
weird.
up in northern Michigan, and in my era, in my pocket of the Lower Peninsula, there was a lot of racism too. Like that's because there was predominantly white people up there. And we didn't see a lot of like black people or Hispanics at the time in the 80s.
Yeah.
And so it wasn't that we were like hating them. It's like we were not scared of them, but like, wow, a novelty.
Yeah.
That's a terrible way of saying it too, but it was just a different time and a different place.
Speaking of novelties, I went to India. Remember with Michael Shedd back in like 2003?
Oh, yeah.
I spent a month in India, and that was one of the craziest things I've ever experienced. And I remember going to the zoo. Michael and I went to the zoo, and we in Delhi. I think it was in Delhi or Hyderabad. And we went into the zoo, and there's all these school kids there. Well, we're the only white Americans there, okay? And the kids stopped looking at the animals and started looking at us.
Poking you
we
with
became
sticks.
the exhibit there. Say something. Say something.
When I went to Ecuador in 06, people were scared of me. They wouldn't let me stay in their home. The host families wouldn't. So I would be the one in the hotel room. Or
why were they scared of you?
Because I was much bigger at the time. I had long blonde hair, and I was a gringo.
So you should have went to India and became a guru.
A guru?
A guru.
Oh.
You know, Michael changed his name to Vishnu. He started following.
A different Michael, not Shedd.
No, not Michael Shedd. This is a good clarification. See, this is why I need your editorial assistance. Another Michael that we know was pretty well known, and he went off the rails a little bit and just kind of went crazy. Then
switched religions.
He met a guru. He's a very famous guru, actually. I can't remember his name.
Not that famous.
Not that famous. No, he is really famous. There's even a Netflix thing on him.
Oh, really?
So Michael met this dude, and the dude renamed him.
Is he
Vishnu.
one of those, like, this sounds bad, but like those Biden ones that's kind of gropey? Because I've seen Netflix specials on those kind of gurus.
No, this dude's legit. This dude's legit, and then the psychedelics and like...
Yeah.
Ram Dass. So his name is Ram Dass. So he met Ram Dass, and they became friends, and then Ram Dass renamed Michael. His new name is Vishnu.
Which is just an Indian god, too.
Is it?
Yeah.
the whole religion thing it just really captivates me. I think it captivates a lot of us. Like I shouldn't get off this topic because this is a fly fishing podcast, but we're all seekers, I think. And I talked to this girl this week and that I work with, and she did not grow up in any religion at all. And we're meeting with a client, and I'm talking to this client, and they're like, the client was like, we're talking about religion because the guy used to be a pastor, so I could talk to him. Get back in the car, and she's like, I really should check out the whole religion thing, because she says I work on the lakeshore in Holland, and it's a very religious community. I'm not religious, however, I came out of a lot of that, and I can speak the lingo. It's a different language. Christianese. And so I was like, well, what do you mean? She's like, well, I think there's a God, but I just never been exposed to any of that before, but even though she'd never been exposed to it, she's seeking, I think we're all seekers. We all try to find meaning and purpose anyways, I don't know how I got on that, but
I don't know.
I guess because of Vishnu, and Michael used to be really Christian, very Christian.
Yeah.
And he used to lecture me on Christian things. And then now he's Vishnu, and I think he wears the robe and everything.
Oh, wow.
Not all the time, but in the psychedelics.
You checked out his new music?
No, have you?
I have a little bit.
Is it good?
It's not the old stuff. I'll just leave it at that.
I'm curious. I have to check it out now, because I've always loved his stuff. I think he got nominated for a couple Grammys. I mean, he's a really well-known musician.
Yeah.
Speaking of music, nothing compared to his, but our album is about to come out January the 15th. It'll be available on all streaming sites, so that's good. And we're very excited about that. Everyone who pre-ordered, if you haven't gotten it before this podcast episode, you're going to be getting it soon, so we're very excited about that. Thank you all for your pre-orders. Also, if you're watching us on YouTube, click below, click subscribe down below. That really helps us with our algorithms, helps us move up. Also, leave us a review.
Yeah.
A couple Karens have left us some 1-star reviews. That's okay.
Karens are welcome here too.
We love Karens with an I, not with an E, but we still love Karens. Karens with an E, be damned. No, I'm totally kidding. No, we love all Karens. We love all Karens. I have an Aunt Karen.
Oh,
I have an aunt. I know
I have an
Karen.
Aunt Karen too. I know
have Karen friends.
Yeah.
I got friends that are Karen. But speaking of other people and other cultures and everything like that, this week's before we get to other news, well, let's go. I tell you what, let's go to in other news. Wow, we're really focused on the Asian culture here. Chinese, quote unquote, iron crotch kung fu masters fight to preserve a painful looking tradition. Huntun, not to be confused with Wuhan.
Whoa,
Huntun.
no.
Juntun or Huntun. I'm sorry to anyone who's Chinese.
I don't know.
I tell you what, if you're Chinese and you're listening to this podcast and you'd like to come on as, we will bring you on the podcast.
We'll do a phone-in.
We will do a phone-in.
Actually, phone-in, it's old school. We'll do a Zoom call.
We'll do a Zoom call. Wang Lai Tao is no ordinary kung fu master. Why is that so funny?
No, I'm watching the video.
We'll give you 6 seconds of that on our YouTube channel. Wang Lu Tao is no ordinary kung fu master. The 65-year-old from a village in central China practices, with an S, a unique and excruciating-looking strand of martial arts coined iron crotch kung fu. Its most famous technique involves a steel plate capped log, 2 meters, about 6.5 feet in length, and weighing about 40 kilograms, 88 pounds for our American listeners, that swings through the air and smashes into a man's crotch.
I like how they say smashes.
Smashes into a man's crotch.
Better than pounds.
Who's the writer? This is from Reuters, so it is legit. A guy by the name of Martin Quinn Pollard. Thank you, Martin. Appreciate it. The word smashes is brilliant. Smashes and wordsmith. See, you don't get that from us. You get that from real legitimate people like Aaron Reed. When you practice iron crotch kung fu, as long as you push yourself, you will feel great, said Wang. His name's Wang. What? Let me read that again. I should have read this better. When you practice iron crotch kung fu, as long as you push yourself, you will feel great, said Wang, head of Huntan Martial Arts Academy. Wang, God, we're like kids.
I know.
We're like 12-year-olds.
Yep.
Wang, who has been practicing the technique for half a century and has 2 children, and he has 2 children. So, okay.
It still works then. Wang still works.
Wang still works. Practicing the technique for around half a century, that's 50 years to our American listeners, and has 2 children, and says that with pissed off every American, every Asian, India's in Asia, China's in Asia. Okay, we're left in,
our racial
in the
episode.
UK. We're left in Britain. It does not hurt.
Didn't they own India for a little while?
I don't want to go there. Wang, who has been practicing the technique for half a century and has 2 children, insists that the correct methods and sufficient practice, it does not hurt and has no effect on fertility. The iron crotch mastery of which is gained by taking hits to the body's weakest points while using qigong breathing techniques to injure oneself is just one element of the branch of Kung Fu that has been practiced in Wang's village for the past 300 years. The style encompasses scores of attack techniques, as well as resisting pressure, pain, or hits to other sensitive areas. We all have iron throat, iron head, iron chest, and iron back as well, said fellow master 53-year-old Tang Xingjiang. The style of Kung Fu practiced by those in Hutan village on the outskirts of the ancient capital of Luoyang was historically a fiercely guarded secret. But concern has grown that fewer and fewer people were taking it up and it might not survive.
You ever seen Kung Pao?
No.
If that was when I was a drunk, I would go home and I had nothing else going on. I'm gonna have a few more beers and watch Kung Pao. I would recommend it if you just it's a movie. It's a movie. And I would recommend it if you just want a dumb comedy. I would recommend that movie.
Kung Pao?
Kung Pao.
Well, whenever I'm drinking too much, I always watch The Big Lebowski. That's my put on. I've seen the movie a million times.
Yep.
And when I'm slightly inebriated, I like to watch that.
It's still funny.
And it's still funny.
Yep. That's Kung Pao for me. And I watched it with my wife 6 months ago, and she's like, I don't get it.
Nope. It's kind of like watching Search for the Holy Grail sober without any friends. It's just a sad
Indiana
movie.
Jones, you mean? Or
no, Search for the Holy what is that called? Monty Python's.
Oh, yeah.
What is it? Monty Python's
and the Holy Grail or something like that, or
yeah. That one there when you
I never got into that movie.
When you're sober and no friends around laughing, then you're a really sad sack.
Yeah.
You realize how pathetic your life has become, and then you start drinking, and then it becomes
Then you drink more.
It's a vicious cycle. Speaking of vicious cycles, speaking of
where were we again?
Wait, hold on. No, but seriously, speaking of diversity, our guest this week is Phil Sims, Accountant Phil. We've talked about him a million times on the show. We've tried to we tried to record 3 different episodes, none of which turned out. I'm not going to go into details why, but let's just say
we watched The Big Lebowski.
Dude, let's just say we ended up watching The Big Lebowski. But we've tried, and his brother Micah would come along, and I think that's where things kind of what is it called? Left the rails.
Yeah.
Because Micah is one of the funniest human beings I've ever met in my life. And it's like when you sit around the campfire with all your friends, it's funny and hilarious. But if you don't know Micah in his track pants and Slayer shirt around the campfire, it's just not as, it's just, I don't know. I don't know if it translates. I don't know. And then the episode would go 4 hours long.
Yep.
So this week, but see, Phil went to an inner city school similar to I graduated from North Shore High School in Southeast Houston, and I was definitely a minority in my high school. I went to Brazos Wood High School for most of my high school career, and that was very diverse as well, but not as diverse as North Shore. North Shore, I was the minority in my class, very familiar with that, how it feels to be a minority, and I think with Phil, he comes from Grand Rapids, schools in Grand Rapids, and so we have a lot in common. I think we have just a pretty big mindset compared to, I don't know, my kids go to a school that isn't. It's very weird that they're not exposed to the diversity like I was. So, but anyways, I'm very excited to have Accountant Phil this week.
Yeah.
We're actually going to get through an entire interview.
Awesome.
We're Zooming after the kids have gone down. So,
and watching Big Lebowski, streaming it together over the web.
Like Mystery Science Theater 3000.
1, 2, 3, go. Wait. Do we go on 3 or do we go on go?
Did you ever watch Mystery Science Theater 3000?
Yeah.
They sit there and watch stupid movies. That's another show that I can't watch without friends and sober. It's stupid. Well, welcome to the podcast. Let's light the fire. Today on the Remote No Pressure podcast, I'm very excited to finally have Mr. Accountant Phil himself on the podcast. Thanks for hanging out with me, Phil.
It's always a pleasure, Jeff.
The man, the myth, the legend. We've referenced you on several occasions here on the Remote No Pressure podcast. And here you are right in front of me. Now, unlike most guests I schedule a couple of weeks out. We make the interview happen. We do what we have to do, and we get on down the road. With you, this is our 4th attempt at recording a podcast. Bill and I referenced a little bit of why in the intro. But it has to do with your crazy brother, Micah, whom we all know and love. And usually things just kind of get off the rails when we all hang out together, like trout camp.
That is true. And if you count the laptop and software errors before this, I think we're on about round 10.
Yeah, we're almost at almost like, hey, let's do it again. Instead of make 5. But I was like, no, we can't do that. But thanks for hanging out with me, Phil. I appreciate it. Phil Sims, an accountant Phil. It's funny because remember back in the day when we used to go to restaurants. Remember that way back in the day?
Started, Jeff.
What's that?
I remember where it all started. It was at New Holland Brewing Company.
Yeah.
And I rolled in not wearing pleated khakis. And the hostess said, I said, I'm meeting somebody. I know he was going to get a booth. And she's like, are you Accountant Phil?
And you're like, hell yeah, I'm Accountant Phil. You better believe it.
I had about an emotional fit of a 4-year-old for about 2 seconds and then got over it. And now I count it as a term of endearment, Jeff.
You know, it goes back to the immature days of college, like Broccoli Rob, those names that everyone has. We had a kid in our dorm that he came there for college days where you could come and check out the school. And he had 6 toes. Instead of 5. So we called him Han Solo because he had 1 extra toe. No. We called him 6 because he had 1 extra toe. Han Solo was the guy. I was an RA. I don't know if you know this story, but I was an RA. I came in and he happened to have a testicular predicament. And he actually lost a testicle. So we called him Han Solo. Neither one of those guys came back. I don't know why.
I had a best friend growing up, and he had a buddy that had the same situation, and his nickname was Uno. So yeah, I can not relate directly, but definitely can relate indirectly.
What's crazy though, Phil, is you and I have some history. We really started fly fishing kind of the same time. I may have a year or 2 on you, but really we both kind of started fly fishing around the same time. Both corporate refugees is what I like to call us, and you were stressed out as well. We were able to find fly fishing, so that's an amazing thing. And we have a lot of inside jokes, like the word probably.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So
yes.
So it's nice. Would you like to share the story of probably, or would you like me to share the story?
You're going to do it better justice because you've directly related to it, but it happened at a place we were previously employed at together.
Uh-huh.
It was a buddy of yours. I love the story. You kick it off, man. I'll try to chime in with something of my own.
Yeah, it was during the time when we were having a lot of refugees coming over from Central America, and our pastor decided to adopt a young kid, and he was 17, 18 years old, and he needed to work, and he was a hard worker. And so we were able to get him an interview, and I was sitting there with him in the HR interview, and he could hardly understand. He didn't understand English very well. Hardest worker you'd ever meet, but he's from like Central America. And I said, I think his name was Javi, or what was his name? Do you remember his name?
I have no idea. I have the word. I'm surprised I remember your name, Jeff.
His name was like Javi, like Javier or something, something short like that. And I said, well, you got to be able to pass the drug test. We're in the meeting. And he looked at me with his glassy eye. And I said, Javi, can you pass a drug test? He goes, probably. And I go, no, bro. I was like, that's not the answer that we want. It's a yes or no. Can you pass a drug test? Oh, yeah. yes, I can pass a drug test. And that was good. I was kind of sweating until he passed the drug test because, I kind of put my neck out on the line for him, but he did fine. How has fly fishing helped you over the years? I mean, you're a CEO of a mid-sized company here in the Grand Rapids area. And it's not a job that's for the weak. It's a pretty stressful job.
Yeah.
What kind of things how has fly fishing helped you through that whole thing?
Well, you and I pretty much got to know each other when I was working downtown Grand Rapids. You were working downtown Grand Rapids. We had a history prior to that, but I think we really connected around you sharing fly fishing with me. We went to the Muskegon and you showed me a couple holes. It was the first time I understood and encountered Pine Street. And then we navigated somewhere else. I can't even remember where we were. I have a memory for places like I do names, Jeff. So if my iPhone ever dies, I'm screwed. But we got into it. You showed me that day. I remember very well practicing false casting, and I landed a dry fly surface and hooked a little panfish and launched it over behind my head. Didn't even realize that I had caught a fish until I realized it was a little heavier, and probably drove home talking about it the rest of the time. And you were probably cautiously optimistic that I was telling the truth at the time. But I think that's why we get along. We both shoot pretty straight, and you can rile me up and I can rile you up. So that's where it all started. And I guess since then, I don't know what year that was, 2014 or so. Slowly been getting into it more and more. Probably my favorite place to fish is the Flat River, Burroughs Bridge. It's definitely a go-to for me. And it's a great pastime. I think getting in the water, feeling the water on your legs and that pressure, which is hard to explain and maybe sounds a little crazy, but I'm sure a lot of people can relate. You get in the water. I enjoy a good cigar or two or three. And, once you get on the water and you get the water pushing on you, I think there's a lot of days I've just taken a lot of pictures of you because I got to get in my mode first, and it takes me significantly longer than you, I think, to come down and get on that same plane together. So really, it's a reset of my headspace. It's the opportunity to connect with friends, have some really good conversation there and back, and it's the whole experience. So getting fish in hand is an added bonus from my perspective. For sure. Now, what are you drinking on tonight? What are you sipping on? My go-to these days, Michter's straight rye. Straight rye. Can you tell us a little bit about that? I'm not a Michter's fan. I've never had Michter's. Can you tell us a little bit about it? Well, Jeff, it's distilled in small batches according to the Michter's pre-Revolutionary War quality standards dating back to 1753. Is there any kind of Surgeon General warning on that? Or 42.4% alcohol by volume. They've got the standard on there. Nice. I went on the Bourbon Trail this summer, and I had a really amazing time and learned an immense amount about bourbon. We did not encounter Michter's, but we hit a lot of other places. Makers. My favorite place was Willett, probably. Stopped off at Evan Williams. Next year, we're going to go check out Cooperage, where they make the barrels for the whiskey, or for the bourbon rather. And ever since then, I've been trying a lot of random stuff, and this has just been one that stuck for me. For the price, it's amazing. Why do you think bourbon and fly fishing go so well together? True, that's a good question. Because they do. It's kind of like smoking cigars or smoking pipe. It's like drinking whiskey or bourbon. It all seems to kind of go together. I think those prone to nostalgia probably inherently kind of understand how they go together. There's a lot of narrative and imagination that you can put alongside both of them. I think there's a lot of heritage in both of them. And for me, I whenever I travel, I like going places that have a lot of history to them, because I find that I get caught up a lot in the adventure of just kind of imagining what things were like back in the day or what people dressed like, et cetera. And I think you're kind of tapping into that in both genres. And I think both inherently have an element of sanctifying time, setting time aside to do just one thing, whether that's sharing a drink with somebody or sharing a fishing hole with somebody. I think there's a lot of correlation there for people that are wired to enjoy that.
Yeah, it's kind of like smoking pipe, and I've tried it a couple times. I really don't like it. I gag a lot.
You'll come around.
I'm not a huge fan of the
You'll
pipe.
come around.
But, with the pipe, you got to tap it. Is it tamp it? Is that right?
Yeah.
Yes, you got to tamp it right. You got to constantly keep it, lit. It's not like a cigarette that you're going to smoke driving down the freeway. It's one of those things you really need to sit and focus, and you can't really focus on anything but that pipe.
Oh, yeah.
I think fly fishing is the same way. Bourbon is the same way, but it's got a story. It's not, Miller Ice or whatever, that was packed in some plant and shipped out to you. And there's like a process to it. There's history. There's a story behind it. We got to have our stories as fly anglers. Why do you think that? And if it doesn't matter who you talk to, if they're into fly fishing, they're going to enjoy the story behind things. They have like an appreciation for things and it's not like you could fish with a Zebco and not have appreciation for a story or a bourbon, but but it seems like they all kind of go hand in hand. Why do you think that is, Phil?
Good question, man. I guess I would draw back to what we talked about earlier. I mean, there are people that like things an easier way and people that like things a little bit harder. And I find that I'm prone to activities and endeavors in life where there's a high likelihood of failure. And I think where that's the case, a lot of good stories come out of it. And you can go with the mass produced.
It's the Griswold Family Christmas. This is the one I wear in my podcast as you get toward the end of the year. Now, this airs between Christmas and New Year.
Gotcha.
It airs between there. So that's the issue there. But so it's already been Christmas by the time this comes through. So now we're waiting for the New Year. So technically this is out of date by the time this airs, but I still wear it. It's the most comfortable shirt I own. So you'll probably see me wear it in March. Go pick up the kids, from school. It's always a good idea. My kid's a middle schooler, so he's starting to get embarrassed by dad now. So all the more reason to...
You got to play it up, man.
You do. You got to play it up.
You were asking me. Got to make a story, Jeff.
It's funny because the other day, my company, Gordon Water Systems, so I work for a water... We do... as you know, we make like water, reverse osmosis water filter and water softeners here in Grand Rapids. And they gave me a company car and it says Gordon all over it. Like, Gordon Water, good for you. So my kid, I take him to school the other day and he's like, I don't want to be the Gordon kid. So he doesn't want me to like take him to school. And so the other day I went to pick him up from school after school and he wasn't there. And I'm like, where is he at? He rode the bus home. He's never rode the bus one time ever. But he rode the bus. It freaked me out, dude. And I was like, all right.
I called you that night.
Oh, my gosh.
My nightly call to check in at the most inconvenient time of your day.
Well, I said all that to say this. As I'm sitting there waiting for Reagan, my son, he's 11, to come out, there's a couple of 8th graders literally pointing at my car and laughing at it. I was embarrassed. And it's a nice car. It's a nice car. It just says Gordon Water on it. And these little shits are pointing at my car and laughing. And I'm like, no. So I was embarrassed. So that, I'm not going to do that to my kid. But can you imagine me showing up with this sweatshirt with some pleated khakis, black socks, and Chaco, what are those things called? Crocs. Getting out of the car and being like, Reagan, get over here.
Like Uncle Clark.
Like Cousin Eddie, you know?
Yeah, there we go. That's his name.
Like Cousin
Clark,
Eddie.
Clark is the main character.
It is the main character.
Annual tradition to watch that, but we broke that annual tradition last year because I didn't feel like watching the movie. I have no idea why.
Are you going to watch it this year, or what's the deal?
Yeah, probably. We probably will.
Probably.
Not probably. Probably.
I've watched all the Christmas movies already. They're all done for me. They're all...
It hasn't even snowed yet here, man. It snowed this past weekend, and some guys up north of town, they got like 3 inches of accumulation, and we're driving into the shop with snow on their trucks, and felt like a different world. But I haven't seen any accumulation yet, so I'm just not there yet.
Yeah, I saw some flurries yesterday, but nothing crazy.
Nothing crazy.
Question for you, Phil. Now, one of the things that I like about you and that I can appreciate about you, you're probably one of my best friends without a doubt, is your level of vulnerability. And not a lot of people will become vulnerable. It's hard to do that, especially in your position. I think a lot of people in leadership oftentimes lack authenticity. Especially the religious leaders I've been around, they just can't seem to really be authentic. You know, you have to be that way, I think, to an extent. To a certain point, you can't show your cards. You know, you're driving a ship. You can't tell everyone that it's on fire all the time or whatever. You know, you have to have like a game face. You know, there's some intellectual abilities that you have to have as a leader that not everyone has. But I will say, Phil, I know you are a pretty vulnerable person. And when we talk, you know, you've become vulnerable. And I want to share some of those vulnerable secrets that you've given me. I'm totally kidding. I've got a list of secrets.
I don't know if I've got enough left to live through this, Jeff.
No, but I think you have to be that way to fly fish because everyone kind of sucks at first, you know? And then you get good at it. So would you agree to that? And can you tell me like your story in fly fishing? Because I mean, we fly fished a lot together when you first started out, but I didn't go with you every time. Can you tell us a little bit about your journey into fly fishing, Phil?
Fly fishing, yeah. Like I said, you showed me about fly fishing on the Muskegon. Were we both between jobs? I think I was between jobs, and maybe you had a Friday off or something.
Okay.
So it started there about 2014, and pretty much I only fished with you for quite a while because I didn't know what I was doing or have the confidence to go out and do it on my own. And I think everybody who has an element of success, don't get me started on what the definition of success is and where we go wrong as a society, but in order to be successful, you need to be teachable. And that's why I rode your coattails for quite a while. I had no idea where to go. My dad was not an outdoorsman. My great grandpa was a fly fisherman. But that was pretty much the closest link I had in my family to anybody who would be able to pass that legacy on. So yeah, you and I started from there. Hooked up with a couple guys that like to fish out in Colorado. There's a guide out there in Colorado that I would go out and fish with a couple summers for a while there. And I would say that's where I just really leveled up and started to glean a lot of experience and different techniques and appreciation for all the nerdy technical aspects of, you know, you can go as deep as you want, and learning the sport and kind of figured out, you know, I'm not quite as deep as a lot of guys like to go, but enjoy just the overall technique and the experience and what it makes me feel. Probably 2 years ago, started tying, and you and I texted back and forth quite a bit. That was a fun thing for me. And usually as it starts to get cold this time of year, I start pulling stuff back out again and dusting it off and tying up something here or there and daydreaming about the middle of the summer.
Yeah, for sure. And you know, you mentioned that your dad was not an outdoorsman. My father wasn't either. We both have that in common. We're first generation outdoorsmen, I guess. I don't even call myself an outdoorsman. I go outdoors, man, but I wouldn't call myself an outdoorsman. So such a stupid joke.
You got some chops.
So But not long after we went fishing, we started our annual trout camp tradition. You and I host a trip. I say host a trip loosely, in the spring and the fall. And it was just.
You did say host, Jeff.
What?
Rule number trout camp is it has to be poorly planned. That means you cannot have a host.
Okay, what are the rules? What's rule number 1? It can be poorly planned. Are there any rules? I think that's the only rule that we had.
I think made up every trip as we go.
Yeah, I think that number 2 is don't talk about trout camp. No, just kidding. Like Fight Club.
What's said in the truck stays in the truck. I think we actually put people in shock when you and I start ranting on the way up.
It's not the same. If I don't ride with you on the way up, I got to ride shotgun, and we have some new guys in the back, and then, everyone kind of meets up. But our first trout camp with Big John in Cardiac Hill. We both talked about this. Like, we just really wanted to go camping, so we didn't look like an idiot in front of our family when they all wanted to go to camping. It's like, I know a little bit now. I know a little bit more every year. We were able to gain knowledge, but we were pretty ignorant, weren't we?
Yeah. Oh yeah. It was a comedy of errors, Jeff. Let's just be honest.
It wasn't that
I think
long
rule number
ago.
2 of trout camp that year is don't catch fish. Whatever you do.
Yeah, that was like the first couple years of trips.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Comedy of
We
errors.
could say we're resilient, but I think we're just stubborn. I think that's why we haven't gotten discouraged, Jeff.
Yeah, I could say resilient, but I think you're right, man. It's been one of those things I've always enjoyed doing with you, man. I really appreciate you. The spring and the fall. I wanted to do like you said, a Mark Usick tomorrow and take you fishing, and you can call in sick. But unfortunately, for those not familiar with Mark Usick, we all strive. He's kind of like the dude,
Oh yeah.
from
Easily at this point.
From the Big Lebowski. You guys, at the very end of the podcast, we're going to put up a tile with his episode up there, but he's really like the dude. He kind of does what he wants.
He's
man.
Inspirational for sure.
What I mean, that's
favorite line.
What's that?
You were talking about uncertainty in the future or something of that nature, and he said, "The only thing I'm sure about, Jeff, is tomorrow I may or may not use a sick day to go fishing." and
he
had me hook, line, and sinker right then and there. He's got my heart, man.
Oh yeah, and he's
follower on Instagram at this point,
and he's telling the truth. He's truth, and you know what? And he knows,
it resonates, right, Jeff?
Right. His boss knows. He even said, "My bosses know that if I call in sick, I might go fishing." And it's like, you're a man after my own heart. I wish I could be that genuine, that vulnerable as Mark Usick. I think he is. He's almost like he is the dude of our podcast.
Yeah. Yep. I concur. I concur, Jeff.
Yeah.
You framed up all this vulnerability stuff, and then you let me pass.
Well,
you're asking about my journey on fly fishing.
I mean, I don't want to put you on the spot.
You don't have to, Jeff. You don't have to. Nothing's off limits, though, other than what I choose not to answer.
Well, I don't know. Here's the deal. This is how I see it. When people are on my podcast, on the podcast, I wouldn't say it's just mine. It's our families, right? It's the group on our podcast, right? Not my podcast, but I see you as a guest. If you want to go off swearing or doing whatever you want, you're a guest in my house. I'm not going to act like an idiot. I'm going to try to respect my guest if they're on the show. Sometimes we try to keep it PG-13 sometimes, and usually it's
the house band.
The house band, we got our OnlyFans site set up now for the Bilbo Baggins and the Big Show Peep Show, or the Big Toe Peep Show. We got an OnlyFans site up now. So I installed some cameras in my bathroom so you can only see from the ankle down. And, I invite different guests to come on and we interview each other's big toes.
That's true, Jeff.
What's that?
You just got to keep trying, man. Just keep evolving.
Yeah, you and I, you and I have a history, dude, like of all my crazy and zany ideas. And it's like,
Oh, we have fun brainstorming together, man.
we do. Yeah, like I always thought it would be cool to make prosciutto. Is that the big ham and you
I think that's like thinly sliced some type of meat thinly sliced that's dried, like hung and seasoned or something.
Right. So I thought it
the recipe wrong on that.
Well, I think you're right, because I thought about starting a business where people can pre-order their prosciutto like 6 or 12 months in advance, and I hang it up in my basement, right, because it's got a season, and I have a little camera on it, and they have a code, and they can sign in and look at their prosciutto anytime and watch it age through the months. Like you buy this thing, it's like waiting for a baby. You get your wife pregnant, and then you go ahead and put a deposit down on the prosciutto.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And then you can log in anytime, see what it's doing, seeing where it's going, how it's aging, and I think people would really buy into that. You know what I mean? That's a good business idea right there.
There it is. You got to involve people in part of the journey, Jeff.
On the journey to perfect prosciutto. Are you a prosciutto guy, Phil? I
actually don't genuinely know what prosciutto for sure is. If it's thinly sliced meat that you eat with cheese, I am a big fan.
Yeah, so we used to have this place, GB Russo and Sons, out on 29th Street.
Oh, yeah, right. House, man.
Right. I loved, they're closed now, but I loved GB Russo. And they had the best prosciutto in town, and you can get there were different types. Some had like a piney flavor,
They've still got a deli there.
Really?
Yeah.
So they closed like the other part of their store and just kept up the deli?
They sold their store, but they kept some type of deli or brought another deli in. And they still sell like a lot of stuff that they used to.
I got to go over there.
Less wine.
Less wine?
Yeah, less wine, more liquor.
Really?
Yeah.
See, you know where all the good liquor places are and the cigar places, And that's why we're friends.
I like my vices in moderation, Jeff.
Yeah, I once posted, let me see if I could find it. I posted up this quote from an author. His name's Mark Twain. Maybe you're familiar with his writing.
Hold on. Is it everything in moderation, including moderation?
No, it's not. Let's see here. I'm looking through my Facebook page. I'm seeing here Remedy Provisions from Mr. Nate Carnes. Some other stuff. Let's see here. Let's see the quote from Mark Twain. Let's see if I have it. Everyone's sitting on the edge of their seat in anticipation. Oh, here it is. To have nothing the matter with you and no habits is pretty tame, pretty colorless. It's just the way a saint feels, I reckon. It's at least the way he looks, and I never could stand a saint.
That hits the soul, Jeff.
That's deep, brother.
On a scale of 0 to rainbow, how colorful are you, Jeff?
I would say I'm a 6. Little curious,
We've seen some road, Jeff. We've seen some road.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny because we're both cynics, and sometimes we're not good with each other. Sometimes we're both kind of negative. We have to be careful when we hang out.
Definitely,
not to go off the rails.
It's not a responsible thing to do if one of us isn't a designated cynic, less driver in a conversation, Jeff.
I try. I really try hard. Hard. I really try hard. That's my Gretchen Whitmer coming out of me. I really try hard to really manage that. My cynicism, my negativity. I'm naturally that way. Even this record I'm about to put out, my producer's like, "Could you write something a little happier?" And I'm like, "No, I do my best. It is what it is. If you don't like it, you don't like me. I do my best, Phil. I do my best."
We all do, Jeff. We all do.
Well, Phil, thanks for hanging out with me tonight. I appreciate it. Any final words for our audience? Anything that you want to get off your chest that you've been thinking about a lot lately?
Ooh. I think what you're doing with the podcast is really important. I think that the interest that you show in people and the questions that you ask, there's an undercurrent of fly fishing, obviously, but I'm an avid listener on the Monday mornings when I need a little boost from you and Wild Bill. I think I'm the anchor here and probably the more boring component of the dynamic that I come excited to listen to every week. And I appreciate what you're doing. And I think what a lot of people probably don't see behind the scenes on the show is the dedication and the investment and the emotional energy that you invest in putting this thing out. And I think it's pretty cool. I remember when this was just a concept, and it's come a really long way. It's got a huge following, and you have every right to be proud of yourself and the community that you've built. And, you know, what it's turned into over time is really exciting to see how it's evolving and what it's turning into. So proud to have you as a friend and proud of what you're doing, and everybody you have lining up to be a part of that journey is pretty cool. So it's been fun to experience from afar. And we were laughing before this. I feel like I've learned more about you on the podcast than all the other stuff we get into. We get distracted, you know, together about other probably ancillary, not important topics in life. And
Right.
Somehow we feel like we're accomplishing something. But I think the humanity of what you're doing is inspiring. And I'm guessing that's why a lot of people are excited to tune in and be a part of that journey as listeners and feel welcomed in to that. So it's off my chest, Jeff. There it is.
Thanks, buddy. You're a good friend. I appreciate you, man. You do have an Instagram account, I believe, right? Or no?
Oh, Jeff, I have no friends on Instagram. My wife follows me, and I just follow fly fishing stuff, bonsai stuff, bourbon stuff. And let's see, what else do I follow these days? Literature. I like reading. I like quotes. That's pretty much it, man. But I nobody wants to follow me. They wouldn't be permitted to follow me. I don't do anything on there. It's just my way to engage in what I want to read and look at. And it's not other people's lives, Jeff. Not even yours. I'm sorry, man. But it's not what I use social media for.
What does a bonsai tree set you back these days?
I have no idea. My dad was into bonsai growing up. He's got some crazy trees that are at this point 35 years old. They start to do really gnarly things as they get older. And I think it's called turtle scaling or something like that. I can't remember the term exactly, but he's got this tree that's 35 years old and normally has a very smooth bark, and it starts to get really gnarly, and kind of imagine like a really gnarly crocodile skin or something like that starts to happen to the tree over time as a result of all that energy being suppressed and kept into that tree, and it starts to behave differently and look differently over time, which I just think is really cool. So that's why I follow that. I'm a complete amateur. It's like you asking me what prosciutto is. I have no idea what a bonsai tree costs.
Yeah, the reason I ask, you pulled this person's name in my work at Secret Santa.
Yeah.
She happens to like plants. She's a plant and cat person. So I was thinking maybe bonsai would be kind of cool, you know?
Does she have like random glasses of like half glasses of water that are weirdly colored because they've needed to be dumped out for like 30 years on her windowsills and things of that nature?
No, she job shares, so she's not there all the time, but there's lots of random plants, and her emoji is a kitten, so she likes kittens and plants. So I was thinking of getting a chia pet cat. You know, you can get a chia, that's a cat, but I think maybe the bonsai might be a little cooler. I like that. I'm gonna have to take a look at the bonsai thing because, again, the story, the history, like you said, the pent up energy. All of a sudden, the scales come on, and like it just sounds just like me, you know, just like all this pent up energy. Wow, lots to dig in there. But Phil, thank you so much for hanging out with me tonight. I really appreciate it, man. And you're a good friend. You always have been. I look forward to our trout camp in the spring when we go up north. And I appreciate it, buddy. Thanks for hanging out with me.
You got it, man. Thanks, Jeff.
Thanks for hanging out with me, Bill.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
I always enjoy hanging out with you.
We have good times.
We always have good times. especially with Phil and Mike and the whole crew.
Yeah.
Guys, if you're watching on YouTube, click subscribe below, please. It really helps us with the algorithms. You're going to hear me saying that over and over again until you get sick of it. But I would really appreciate any kind of comments. Please comment below. Please like our podcast. It helps us grow. It helps us.
Please like our podcast.
Please. That's we both. If you're watching on the YouTube channel, we've got our prayer hands going on. Please. Or is that from the ancient crotch technique?
Oh, iron crotch.
The iron crotch. You know what? I think we should go to China
and learn it
and learn the iron crotch.
I don't know if I want to. I just see mangled junk
smashed. But go to our website, remotenопроpressure.com. All of our t-shirts right now, our short sleeve shirts are on sale right now for $18. That includes $18.
You can't afford not to.
Can't afford not to. That includes shipping, taxes, everything. The whole shoot match, $18. Our long sleeve tees are $20. We got some sweet decals. Every time
still got some buffs?
We got some buffs as well. Every time that you purchase something from us, it helps support the podcast financially. We don't do the, what is it called?
Patreon?
We don't do Patreon. Don't do anything like that. Maybe we should. I don't know. But for me, when you give us money, I want to give you something in exchange.
Yeah.
So that's why we have the shop there. So go to remotenopressure.com. Check that out. Bill, did you have anything else to say today?
Oh, wow. You know, I did.
I didn't mean to put you on the spot. I know it comes unexpected.
You surprised me with that one, too. You're like, Bill, you got anything to say? And I'm
Bill,
like,
what else do you have to say, Bill?
Oh, I got nothing. I'm still in shock from the iron crotch.
I've already had my kids. It's time to learn a new concept.
Time to learn to defend my crotch.
Should have learned that 20 years ago. No one's listening anymore.
Nope, that's the end of it.
That's the end of it. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with us. Until next time, go fishing.